There have been far too many developments in West Asia over the last few days, from reports of progress in US Iran diplomacy to renewed strains on ceasefire arrangements and rising concerns over the Strait of Hormuz. To unpack what these developments mean for the region and beyond, we're joined by Stanley Johnny, the International Affairs Editor at The Hindu. So, Stan, there were too many updates the other day. Trump reportedly on his truth post said that he's spoken to Netanyahu, he's spoken to Hezbollah. Also, he said the talks with Iran are going at a rapid pace. But on the other side, interestingly, the Iran has suspended talks with the US. And we have to note that this all happened, all these developments happened in just 24 hours. So what's really happening?
Yeah, there were dramatic developments yesterday. And my takeaway is that everything, if you look at everything that happened yesterday, June 1st, Monday, my key takeaway is that Trump looks absolutely desperate for a deal. He wants a deal to get out of the crisis which he himself created, which is now very evident because you look at the developments from a chronological point of view. In the morning of June 1st, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he was going to bomb Beirut southern neighborhood, Dahir.
Yep.
So bombing of Beirut is a red line drawn by the Iranians on April 8th when they agreed to the ceasefire, right? And on April 16th, President Trump announced a ceasefire, April 16th or 17th, depending on from where you look at it, whether from the US or from Lebanon. He announced a ceasefire in Lebanon, right? And ever since, on paper there is a ceasefire, but Israel has been carrying out the attacks. So, But most of Israel's attacks were taking place in southern Lebanon, not in Beirut.
Right.
So Beirut is a red line for the Israelis. So on June 1st, Netanyahu first says that he was going to bomb Dahiyeh, which is the southern Beirut neighborhood. And then the Iranians say that they were going to suspend all contacts with the United States.
Right.
They had suspended direct negotiations earlier. Now they said that they will even suspend exchange of texts with the Americans through the Pakistanis or the Qataris. And then within hours, Trump swung into action. So you read Trump's Truth Social post in the evening. He talked to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and then he talked to Hezbollah. Again, the key takeaway of Trump's post is that Trump has asked Netanyahu, you can't bomb Beirut. And Netanyahu accepted that, right? Instead, the Israelis are now carrying out attacks in southern Lebanon with vengeance, which they will do. But they actually wanted to expand the war. They wanted to expand the war. They wanted to hit Hezbollah in Dahiyeh, but Trump prevented them. So why did Trump do this? Trump was trying to salvage his own peace process with the Iranians. And if you look at the details of the call, there were, pretty controversial details about the call. Trump apparently told Netanyahu, according to Axios, I don't know if it's true, but this is one report that is there in the public domain. Trump apparently told him that Netanyahu is effing crazy. But that shows Trump how frustrated Trump is and how angry he is with the Israeli attacks in Lebanon.
Right.
And then Trump said that Hezbollah will not attack you, and then you would not attack Hezbollah. So he is actually trying to send a message to the Iranians that you wanted a ceasefire in Lebanon, and I am getting a ceasefire in Lebanon. I am preventing Netanyahu from attacking Beirut. Why? Because he wanted the talks to be back on the track. And Trump also said that the talks are proceeding. But the Iranians have not confirmed it. If you look at the statements issued by both Foreign Minister Arakchi as well as the chief negotiator and the parliament speaker, MB Ghalibaf, both of them had clearly said that if the war in Lebanon is continuing, there is not going to be a deal. Right? So this is what happened yesterday. So it's interesting that Netanyahu was planning to go to Beirut, and the Iranians threatened to pull out, and then Trump steps in. He forces Netanyahu to pull back from his Beirut plan, And then Trump was telling the Iranians that I have restrained Netanyahu
Right.
and I want talks to be back on the track.
So how critical is Lebanon for the talks? Like there was a ceasefire which came into effect on, like they agreed it on April 17th.
Yeah.
Where does it stand now, and how critical is Lebanon for the US-Iran negotiations?
See, ceasefire, I mean, I don't know, in the context of West Asia, especially if Israel is involved, Israel doesn't follow any of its ceasefire commitments. They agreed to a ceasefire in Gaza. They still continues to bomb Gaza at will. Just last week, Netanyahu announced that he was going to expand the control, quote unquote. Basically, he is planning to deepen his occupation, military occupation of Gaza. From 60% to 70%.
Okay.
So which means the population of Gaza, 2.3 million people, would be pushed towards 30% of this strip of land. And Lebanon, there is a ceasefire, but Israel continues to bomb southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah continues to attack Israel. So there is no ceasefire.
It's
ceasefire
just there
is
on
there.
the paper.
It's just on the paper. But Lebanon is critical for Iran, or Lebanon is critical for President Trump for their ceasefire negotiations. Why? Just go back to April 8th. On April 8th, when Trump got his ceasefire, one of the demands the Iranians made was that if the ceasefire is coming into force, and the ceasefire has to come into force on all fronts.
Yes.
This is what the Pakistani Prime Minister had tweeted.
Right.
I mean, it's in the record.
Right.
The Americans initially said that no, Lebanon was not part of the agreement. And the Israelis had immediately stepped up attacking Lebanon.
Yeah.
They escalated the war.
Yeah.
But then Trump, on April 16th, Trump announced that no, there is a ceasefire in Lebanon. And I talked to the Lebanese government as well as the Israelis, and then the ceasefire is going to be respected. He even said that Israel is prevented from attacking Lebanon.
Right.
Enough is enough. This is what the President of the United States said. Enough is enough. Israel is prevented. But Netanyahu doesn't give a damn. Netanyahu continues to bomb Lebanon. But as I said earlier, the bombing largely focused on southern Lebanon.
Yeah.
Okay, he restrained himself from attacking Beirut. And instead he focused on southern Lebanon. And in southern Lebanon, Israel also captured more territory. Israel is pushing deeper towards the northern parts of Lebanese territory and capturing more territory. But Israel's plan, what was Israel's plan in Lebanon? Israel's plan was to create a security buffer zone in the south and push Hezbollah towards the north, so that Hezbollah would not be able to fire rockets into northern Israel. So Israel's plan is to basically protect its northern Israel and capture more Lebanese territory and push Hezbollah further towards north, basically north of the Litani River of Lebanon.
Right.
But you see, back in the 1980s, when Israel was fighting the Hezbollah, Hezbollah used to send suicide fighters, suicide bombers, targeting Israeli forces, Israeli positions. So what Israel is trying to do now is destroying buildings in the region, pushing out people, displacing a lot of people, so that it thinks that the security zone can be enforced. But Hezbollah instead, I mean, they can't send people, but instead they are now using, they are not using suicide bombers, instead they are using suicide drones today. Okay. So they are using this fiber optic cable drones, that FPV drones, to attack Israeli positions. So even in southern Lebanon, Israel is expanding its territorial control, but Israel keeps coming under attacks from Hezbollah drones. So Israel wants to hit Hezbollah harder. So, I mean, it's their command and control centers. Some of Hezbollah's top leadership might be living in southern Beirut, so that's what Israel wanted to target. Okay. So, but they are not able to do that. Why? Because Iran says that if you want an agreement, then Israel cannot attack Beirut. And if Israel continues its attacks, then we are going to pull out of the talks.
Right.
Then Donald Trump would be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because who wants the agreement? Trump wants the agreement, right? And the Iranians, I think, at this point of time, yes, the Iranians also want an agreement, but I think President Trump looks more desperate than the Iranians.
Why is there no deal?
There is no deal because, you know, the main problem is that, just look at it from the American and the Iranian point of view, okay? What does President Trump want? when he went to the war, he had this long list of objectives. He didn't
Yeah,
meet any of
yeah.
his objectives. So he wanted to get at least some meaningful concessions from the Iranians when he signed an agreement with them, so that he can tell his base and his allies
Yeah.
that I got something from Iran.
Right.
And what is this something? He wants the Strait of Hormuz to be reopened. He wants Iran to commit to
The
kind of
nuclear,
surrendering its nuclear program.
options, yeah.
What does it mean? It means that Iran has to agree to ship out its enriched uranium, and Iran should also agree not to enrich uranium. So Trump wants that kind of an agreement, and in return, Trump can offer some kind of concessions, economic concessions to the Iranians, right? And then you look at from the Iran's point of view, Iran sustained 40 days of bombing.
Yep.
They lost their supreme leader. They lost a lot of other top generals, including the IRGC chief, and their defense chief, their Supreme Council chief, Supreme Security Council chief, a lot of people. So from the Iranian point of view, they suffered a lot, they endured a lot, and why should they give a diplomatic victory to Trump? Because he could meet his objectives through the war, and why should you let the Americans meet their objective through diplomacy? So Iran is playing the hardball here, right? And Iran also, I mean, they have a vested interest in getting an agreement, because Iran wants economic concessions. Iran wants long-term economic concession. Iran wants the sanctions to be lifted, and they want long-term security guarantees as well. But at the same time, they are not willing to make concessions on some core areas. Because from the Iranian point of view, the war has changed the strategic reality of the region.
Right.
Because if we were holding this negotiation on February 27th of 2026, Iran was actually facing the threat of an immediate, imminent American attack. And that threat is a very powerful idea, right? I mean, the United States, the world's most powerful country, is going to bomb you, and anything can happen. It's a very powerful country, anything can happen. So America could have actually used the threat of bombing Iran to exact concessions from the Iranians. When? On 27th of February 2026. But now that attack has already happened. So the Iranians knew that this is what the Americans could do. They bombed you for 40 days. And then, yes, I mean, the bombing caused immense material damage, but did it destroy Iran's missile capacity? No. Did it destroy Iran's nuclear program? No. Did it bring down the regime? No, it didn't. So the American attack threat is now a spent force, right? So Iran has emerged regionally stronger. We talked about it earlier, because they control the Strait of Hormuz, right? So from an Iranian point of view, their incentive today to make a deal is lesser than the incentive they had on February 27th, right? So the Iranians are now playing the hard ball. What they have done is very clear. The Iranians are apparently negotiating a memorandum of understanding, which is only a preliminary agreement that Iran had confirmed. If you look at Masoud Pezeshkian's statement, he thanked the Pakistanis for orchestrating the discussion of the MOU. The American media reported that both sides had agreed to the MOU. Axios reported, AP reported. I don't know whether they have agreed, because nobody has officially confirmed. This was a source-based story.
But it was supposed to bring things, I mean, like calm things down, right? The MOU.
Yeah, MOU was a preliminary agreement, right? So the American media reported that Iranian and American negotiators had agreed to an MOU.
Right.
And then President Trump made a last-minute intervention and added some more clauses and then sent it back to the Iranians. This is the US version, at least the US media version. But the Iranians on the other side have clearly said that they never said that they reached an agreement on the MOU, but they said that they are negotiating an MOU. Okay? So let's say that at least an MOU is on the table.
Right.
Both sides are talking about an MOU. And New York Times had reported about the content of the draft agreement. According to the draft agreement, the Iranians would agree to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for 30 days. The ceasefire would be extended by 60 days. Right? And the United States would lift its blockade of the Iranian ports if and when the Iranians reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, and Trump had confirmed this, by the way. If you go and look at Trump's Truth Social post on May 30th, in which he said that the United States is lifting the blockade. Okay, and then the Iranians will also get some economic concessions. Apparently, the United States is talking about a $300 billion development fund to make investments in Iran. And Iran will also get access to some of its frozen funds. So the United States may not hand them over to the Iranians, but the Qataris can do the funds that are frozen in Qatar. And other third-party countries can do the same thing. Right. So Iran will get access to the frozen funds. Iran will have an investment fund as part of a final agreement to make investments in the country. And Iran will allow passage through the Strait of Hormuz to the pre-war level, and the blockade would be lifted. So this is the preliminary agreement. And once the preliminary agreement is agreed, once this comes into force, only then Iran will be open to talk about its nuclear program. Right. So that's the core issue here. The core issue is the nuclear program. The Iranians now say that first, let's talk about ending the war. And once you end the war, let's talk about the nuclear file. Yeah, right. Okay? So, I mean, the Iranians continue to play hardball here. If you look at President Trump's statements, he says that Iran doesn't have a cohesive leadership. Iran, they don't even know who their leader is. I have destroyed everything. I have destroyed their Navy, Air Force, etc., etc. But if you look at the responses from both sides, Trump had taken several U-turns. Yeah. He had made several self-contradictory statements. Yes. Yes. The Iranians on the other side have been pretty consistent in their position.
We have talked about the U-turns in the last episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the Iranians were willing to talk about the nuclear file. See, before the war, they were even willing to make concessions on the nuclear issue, right? On February 27th, there was an agreement. The Oman foreign minister had confirmed. British National Security Advisor had confirmed. The Iranians were willing to make solid concessions on the nuclear program on February 27th. And after the war, their position actually became hardened. Yeah. But even then, the Iranians were ready to talk about the nuclear program when the ceasefire came into force. Right. That's why J.D. Vance went to Islamabad. Right. And both sides talked about the nuclear program. Right. Okay, whether the Iranians had offered a concession or not, we don't know. But they were discussing the nuclear program. Right. But this position changed only after the United States imposed the blockade. Because what Trump thought, when the Islamabad talks collapsed, Trump thought that if he had imposed the blockade, Iran would buckle under the pressure and offer him something. But instead, what the Iranians did, they deprioritized the nuclear file. They kicked it down the list. Yeah. So they told Trump that, okay, we have the Strait of Hormuz, you have the blockade, let's settle this first. And once we settle this, I will take up the nuclear issue. Right. So Trump is, Trump is actually facing a serious dilemma here. What the key issue he wanted to solve is the nuclear issue. But the Iranians are not even willing to talk about the nuclear issue. Right. So the MOU that we are talking about is not about Iranian nuclear program. Right. It's about bringing the war to an end. Right. Yeah. Right.
So let's also look at the Gulf now. So the UAE, when it comes to the UAE has taken a lot of attacks from Iran. A few days ago, we saw reports emerging that UAE were also part of strikes against Iran. So how does this play out in the UAE-Iran ties? What's up on that front?
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal reported last week. I think a couple of weeks ago also they had another report about the UAE's role in the war against Iran. Because if you remember the reports about the war reporting during actual fighting was going on, most of those reports actually questioned why the Iranians were particularly singling out the UAE in their response. Iran had launched some 3,000 drones and missiles towards the UAE, right? I think this explains why UAE was particularly hit badly, because the Iranians knew that the UAE was part of the war. There were all kinds of reports. The Israelis had said that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had traveled to Abu Dhabi and met the UAE leader. But the Emiratis had rejected this report. But the Israeli Prime Minister's office says, yes, he traveled secretly during the war. The Israelis had also shared their missile defense systems with the Emiratis, right? and the UAE had launched drones and missiles towards Iran. So the Iranians, we know that the Iranians were getting intel from the Chinese and the Russians,
Yeah.
which means probably they knew the source of the attacks. They knew that the UAE were part of attacking, part of the war.
Yeah.
So that's why they particularly retaliated hard
Yeah.
against the UAE. And the UAE's position also, when I think we talked about it earlier, UAE's position, I think, is slightly different from other Arab countries with regard to Iran, especially now. Because Oman clearly is not part of the war party. Oman wants to have a much stable relationship with the Iranians. And Oman was recently attacked for the same by the Americans, right? President Trump threatened to blow up Oman.
Yeah.
So Oman has a different understanding. And I think Saudi Arabia and Qatar also they don't want Trump to resume the war, because they know that if the war is relaunched, they were going to hit very hard. And Kuwait and Bahrain, I think they have very little say in what's happening in the region. They are tiny countries. They need to follow what other countries are doing. And the UAE on the other side is a very close ally of Israel now, very close partner of Israel. And UAE wants to basically see Iran being militarily diminished, because UAE thinks that if the United States cuts a deal with Iran, and if that deal leaves Iran stronger in this region, that means UAE would be at the receiving end, because UAE has already shown its hands. UAE had participated in the war, and UAE is very close to the Israelis. They are very close to the Israelis. And then right in front of their eyes, the region's security architecture is changing. Right? Iran is emerging stronger. They control the Strait of Hormuz. And the American bases and American presence in the region stands diminished, which means UAE stands to lose. So that explains why the UAE is taking a much more aggressive position towards Iran. Or UAE is even supporting the United States relaunching the attack, like the Israelis also take the same line. Compared to other countries in the Gulf region, which prefer a much, much more predictable, balanced relationship with Iran at this point.
Right. So in the coming days, what should we look out for, and how it's gonna play out?
So I think, on June 1st, the ceasefire was actually on the verge of collapse, especially after the Iranians announced that they were pulling out of talks. But then Trump made some serious diplomatic intervention, and then Trump can at least now tell the Iranians that I have done this. The Israelis are not bombing Beirut. So which means what we have to look for is that the Americans have sent a new proposal to the Iranians, right, for the MOU. And the Iranians are expected to send back their response. We don't know. I checked even today. The Iranian leadership has not officially commented anything about their decision to stall talks. Whether they have reversed that decision, we don't know. But I think that the Iranians could send their response back, because now that Beirut bombing has been halted, the Iranians could send their response back. So based on that, we have to see whether there is some kind of common ground. But at the same time, we should also understand that there are a lot of contradictions here. One thing is Lebanon. It remains unresolved. And Netanyahu is unlikely to give up on Lebanon completely. And if he does that, his government could fall. So just look at the responses of other Israeli politicians. And everybody is now going after Netanyahu because he didn't attack Beirut. The right-wing sections in Israel are attacking Netanyahu because the prime minister seemed weak in front of the US president. Right? So Netanyahu is under domestic political pressure. If he doesn't escalate the war in Lebanon, then he could come under increased pressure at home. But if he enhances or he escalates the war in Lebanon, then that could torpedo the ceasefire or the talks between the Iranians and the Americans. So there are a lot of problems here. A lot of contradictions are here. And even between the Americans and the Iranians, you still don't have common ground. They agreed to the ceasefire on April 8th. And even now, they don't have common ground, right? They are still talking about conflicting issues. And the Iranians clearly say that they don't want to give up their control over the Strait of Hormuz. They say that, yes, they will allow traffic to resume, but the ships will have to coordinate with IRGC Navy.
Right.
They have even established a new authority, right? The
Right.
Persian Gulf Strait
Right.
Authority.
Right.
So the Iranians are not willing to give up their control, but President Trump wants them to give up their control. The Iranians are clearly not ready to give up their enriched uranium, but the United States wants them to ship out their enriched uranium. So there is no common ground, you know. So it's very hard to imagine there would be a final agreement.
Right.
But I think it's possible to have an MOU type preliminary agreement so that the ceasefire would be extended,
Right.
and then it could be extended, so that the conflict would be in some kind of a frozen stage. So that is possible. But a final peace agreement bringing the war to an end at this point of time, I don't see it is happening.
Right. Thank you so much, Stan. That's it for this episode. What we are seeing right now is a desperate President Trump for a deal. And like you mentioned in one of your tweets, that President Trump is caught between a close ally who he can't convince and an enemy he cannot
defeat.
So
that's right.
we will have to look out for what's happening, and we'll watch these developments closely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.